International Graduate Student Writing Assistance, presented by April Anderson, doctoral candidate in the School of Education at Iowa State University. The Writing Assistance for International Graduate Students was a program at the College of Human Science at Iowa State University in the 2013-2014 school year. It was designed to provide assistance and feedback with course assignments and other graduate-level writing to international graduate students. Most of the students that I worked with were Chinese students. This assistance was designed to enable the students to learn to identify their writing problems, to learn to improve their writing skills, and to enhance their writing style. I also worked with students on helping with email writing, with understanding course assignments, and with enunciation of English language. It is important to note that this is not an editing service. In working with the Chinese students, I discovered two very common grammatical errors in the students' writing. The Chinese students struggled with proper uses of articles and proper uses of tense. In discussing this with the Chinese students, I discovered that the Chinese language does not have in their grammatical structure articles or tense, which explains why they struggle so much with these two topics. This presentation will explain the uses of both articles and tense to help students build their academic English writing skills. It is my hope that this will help Chinese students as well as American students. I will discuss articles first. Articles have two types, the definite the and the indefinite a or an. I will discuss how to use them and when they are used. The definite article, the, does not change forms. It can be used with all common nouns. Some examples are the table, the apple, the flower. It can also be used with both plural and singular nouns. Examples are the cats or the dog. You also use the when talking about specific or particular items. For example, the blue mug. The indefinite article, an, is used when the things or people we are talking about are not specific. It changes form depending on what follows the article. Example, a is used before a consonant sound, a rabbit, a telephone. An is used before a vowel sound, an elephant, an orange. It is important to note that it is the sound that determines whether the article changes form, not the actual letter. An example of this is an hour. I will be there in an hour. Article use with countable and uncountable nouns. If you have a single noun, single countable noun, you could use the, or you could use an or a. You would use the when talking about a specific item. For example, the cat on my bed. If you have many cats and you are talking about any of the cats, you could use a. A cat ran across the street. Countable plural nouns do not ever use the indefinite article. You would only use the definite article, the. An example is, the cats are on my bed. All of the cats are on my bed. Uncountable nouns. These are nouns that are not countable. Examples are water or air. You would use the when talking about uncountable nouns. An example is, the water in my glass is cold. The air is very warm today. Again, you would never use the indefinite article with a countable plural noun or an uncountable noun, only with a countable singular noun. When talking about countries, states, counties, provinces, lakes, and mountains, we do not use articles. There are some exceptions to this when there is a group of things, for example, the United States or the Himalayan mountains. Again, we do not use an article with plural nouns and uncountable nouns to talk about things in general, only when we are talking about specific things. Tense. This is one of the biggest problems that I have seen with Chinese students. I'm aware that the Chinese language does not have anything comparable in their language, and it is a very complicated thing in the English language. And I can tell you that even native speakers struggle with tense at times. So, tense, we have simple tense, perfect tense, continuous tense, and continuous perfect. These can be either simple past, simple present, simple future. Now technically, there are no future tenses in English. The word will is a modal auxiliary verb, and future tenses are sometimes called modal tenses. I will discuss auxiliary verbs on a later slide. For simple, you can do either the normal or intensive. The normal is an example for past tense, I worked. For present tense, I work. Future tense, using the modal auxiliary verb will, I will work. The intensive uses the auxiliary verb do with the base verb. Examples are I did work, I do work. For perfect tense, that uses the auxiliary word have and a past participle. Example for past tense, I had worked. Perfect present, I have worked. I will have worked. The continuous verb, or the continuous tense, uses the auxiliary verb be and the present participle with an ending ing. Example for a past continuous is I was working. For a present continuous is I am working. The continuous perfect uses the auxiliary have been and the present participle with an ending ing. Example for a past continuous perfect is I had been working. For the present continuous perfect is I have been working. Again, I will discuss modal auxiliary verbs on a later slide. Because I know that tense is a very complicated grammatical structure, I will break this down even further for you. The past, present, and future simple tense, and this is how you use them. For present simple, no auxiliary is needed. So this is used when an action was true yesterday, is true today, and will be true tomorrow. An action that is currently happening or is either a routine or factual action. For the past tense, again, no auxiliary is used. Actions that happened quickly or over time or are previous habits. For future, again, the auxiliary will is always used in future tense, and the use is actions that will happen sometime in the future. So for simple tense, I work. For past tense, I worked. For future tense, I will work. The past, present, and future perfect tense uses the modal auxiliary has or have, or forms of that verb. The present tense uses have. It began in the past, but continues into the present, using has or have. An example is, I have worked, or I have eaten noodles every day for lunch this week. The past tense uses the verb had. This is an action finished in the past before another action began. An example of this is, I had worked as a cook before I started school. The future tense again uses the auxiliary will added to the auxiliary have. This is used for an action that will have been completed at a specific time in the future. An example of this is, when I graduate, I will have studied for. The past, present, and future progressive or continuous tense uses the auxiliary verb or forms of the auxiliary verb to be and has an ending of ing. The present tense uses forms of to be that are am, is, and are. Some examples of this is he is running. We are talking. The past tense uses was or were. Those are the past tense forms of the verb to be. Some examples of this are he was running. We were talking. Future tense uses the modal auxiliary will added to be, the form of to be. Examples of this is he will be running in the race next weekend. We shall be studying in the library tomorrow. And I said earlier I would discuss auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs are used with and preceding certain forms of other verbs to express distinctions of tense, aspect, mood, etc. Some examples of auxiliary verbs are can, will, shall, may, must, might, could, should, would, ought to, used to, and need. Some examples are she can cook, he could cook, and remember those are simple tense verbs. Only the simple present and simple past tense use no auxiliary. Example again, she cooks, he cooked. Those have no auxiliary verbs like the previous she can cook or he could cook. For more information or more assistance, please see these references. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions?